Greetings and salutations, everyone. I hope everyone is doing well this evening. Tonight I've got a terrifying encounter with a Skinwalker. Now, as some of you know, and maybe some of you don't, I am part Native American, Algonquin Indian to be precise, and I am absolutely fascinated by Native American lore and traditions. Now, there's one cryptid that terrifies me the most, and that's a Skinwalker. Then I would have to say a Wendigo, and we'll work our way down. But with a Skinwalker, it's just something that is beyond reality. It's something that not only can physically harm you, but mentally, emotionally, just destroy everything about you. And that's what makes it so terrifying to me. So before we get into this encounter, I've got a couple of links I'd like to share. As you know, I am a commercial-free channel. I rely on my Patreon, PayPal, and merch links to keep this channel growing and going. Now, I'd like to thank everybody who has generously donated to this channel, and the ones who have bought my merch. I hope you guys are enjoying the t-shirts and coffee mugs. Now, I have a second channel which is just dedicated to creepypasta, fan fiction, and scary voice acting. There is a ongoing series that is going to be coming up, and it's going to be on my channel on Jeffrey's Pasta and the Disciples channel. And if you guys are into creepypasta / humor, then follow that link and it'll be the first video you come to. I'm sure you guys will enjoy it. And with that, guys, let's get on with this encounter, shall we? My cousin helped his neighbor excavate an Anasazi ruin, and they were both stalked and terrorized by a Skinwalker. Names have been changed in this story for privacy. When most people think about a haunted place, they imagine a house or an abandoned building. But I believe that whole areas can be hotspots for paranormal activity. For me, it would be the land lying to the east of Snowflake, Arizona, and the west of Concho, Arizona, along the old Concho Highway. The landscape is that of red rock sandstone ridges and red sand. Ancient Anasazi ruins are numerous along the bluffs, echoes of a time when land wasn't so arid and dry. Gnarled and twisted cedars dot the land along a large dry washes where sparse groves of cottonwood grow. My grandparents owned 80 acres of land about 20 miles east of Snowflake. The locals in Snowflake refer to that area as out east. My grandparents' mobile home sat on top of a slow-rising hill. About a mile south, at the bottom of the hill, my aunt and uncle had built a 3-level home where they lived, with their 2 sons and 2 daughters. The house was a neat layout. From the front, it only looked 2 stories. But at the back, due to the slope of the hill, the basement was visible. A large wooden deck surrounded the middle section of the home. The home faced the west, and to the east, the hill slowly descended into the wash. From the back deck, there were views of Zani Holy Mountain and Little Colorado River near St. John's, Arizona. This story is the account of a terrifying experience my older cousin Sam endured in the summer of 1991. It was late June. Sam was 17. While most people his age were enjoying their summer vacation, Sam wasn't. He had attended a huge graduation party and gotten drunk as a skunk. Unfortunately for him, the sheriff's department had also attended the party, and he had received an underage consumption ticket, probation, and a severe tongue lashing. and a summer grounding. His mom even took the keys to his pickup he had worked all last summer to buy. There he was, stuck in the middle of the boonies. He had to keep pretty busy, though, helping our grandparents who lived up on the hill. After coming home in the late afternoon, he noticed that the neighbor Jeff, from about 5 miles to the west, had stopped to visit with his dad, Bill. Jeff was one of those hippie guys. He was cool and all, but everyone suspected he probably partook in a little too much LSD in the 70s. Jeff had a place on the top of the bluff ran adjacent to the Stoddard's house. Bill and Jeff were on the porch bullshitting when Sam walked up. He said hello to Jeff, and Jeff asked him if Sam would want to help him with a project on his property. He said he'd pay him a couple $100 for a week or 2 of work. Sam agreed, some party money for when his parents left town next week for their trip to Nebraska with our grandparents. The next morning, Bill gave Sam his keys back so he could drive over to Jeff's place. When he arrived, Jeff was loading up shovels and equipment in his truck. Sam hadn't asked what they were going to be doing, but assumed after seeing the shovels they were probably going to be replacing fence posts. Jeff told him to hop in the truck, and they headed north along the top of the bluff on a barely visible 2-track dirt road. The top of the bluff had a good view of the surrounding area. You could see the outskirts of Snowflake and the big dry wash dotted with cottonwoods to the west. The White Mountains dominated the horizon to the south. To the north, mesas near Hallbrook were visible. To the east was a little valley along a smaller wash. He could just make out the roof of Stoddar's house. Stoddar's house, the thought sent shivers up his spine and gave him goosebumps. He pushed the story of what happened there to the back of his mind. They went out to the small sandstone alcove, and Jeff jumped out of the truck. In front of them was a huge ruin. Sam had grown up out east and had seen many Anasazi ruins. It looked like a large pile of loose sandstone, but a closer look reveals pottery shards everywhere. Like almost all ruins, this one had large holes where someone had used a backhoe to find pots at some time. Sam got a very uneasy feeling. Jeff must have his face because Sam said he started explaining that his project was to excavate the ruin. He had some grand plan that he was going to excavate the ruin and open a museum on his property of whatever items they found. He'd charge people like $5 to come in and check it out. Sam argued and was not about to dig up illegal ruins. Jeff told him that it wasn't illegal because it was on his property. Sam felt even more uncomfortable. What about angering the spirits? Jeff laughed at this. You're referring to Stoddar's place. Sam nodded. Don't get me wrong, Sam. Your aunt and your grandma are nice, honest people, but I don't think it was Indian spirits. I think they heard rumors in town about what happened to Stoddard, and they freaked themselves out. Besides, he said, this isn't a burial. There's no bodies here. Sam says now he should have listened to that feeling telling him to leave. But he said he brushed it off and started shoveling. Around noon, Jeff headed over to his house to make Sam and him some lunch. Sam stayed at the ruin. He said he didn't really think much about it at the time, but he noticed it was extremely silent around the ruin. There were no signs of sounds or birds, even no cicadas, which usually were around this time of year and never shut up. He said on the wind he swore he could hear faint voices, but chalked it up to being freaked out about Stoddar's place being only about a mile away. When Jeff returned with their sandwiches, He brought a camera so they could document their progress and put the photos in the museum. Jeff had Sam take pictures of him in the room they had cleared out with the items. So they worked for a week. They weren't making much progress. They hadn't found a lot of small pots and beads and a half a matati. Sam was happy to have the day off. All during the week, he had fought the feeling that something bad was going to happen. He was glad to get away from the ruin for a while. He also hadn't been sleeping well. He dreamt one night that his bed had been shaking. After a pretty uneventful weekend, Sam returned to Jeff's house Monday morning. To his surprise, there was a backhoe parked in his driveway. Another neighbor had loaned it to Jeff. Jeff was excited because now they could make more progress. They made a lot of progress. They uncovered 3 to 4 rooms, found more artifacts. Tuesday and Wednesday go by the same. More rooms, more artifacts, all while snapping pictures. After filling 4 rolls of film, Jeff takes them to town and sends them off to be developed. This was the way before camera phones and digital cameras, where it took like 10 days to get your pictures developed. It was now Thursday. They had come across a pretty large room in the Pueblo. In the middle, it was a large block of sandstone, and this piqued Jeff's curiosity. The rest of the sandstone they had come across was small. Using the backhoe, he moved the sandstone to the side. There was a black hole beneath. Something about this black hole made Sam's stomach knot up. Jeff was extremely excited. He looked into the hole, but was unable to make out anything. He grabbed a flashlight and shined it into the hole. "It's another room!" Jeff exclaimed. Sam didn't want to look. Something about that opening made his skin crawl. Jeff told Sam to run and grab a ladder. He did as he was told, hoping Jeff wasn't going to ask him to go in there. Thunder rolled in the distance as he headed back to the ruin. Monsoon clouds were building up to the south, and the wind had just picked up. Jeff put the ladder down into the opening. Sam asked if it was safe. Jeff figured that since the room had been filled with dirt and a giant slab of sandstone for 1,000 years, he didn't reckon the roof would collapse now. Jeff descended the ladder, flashlight in hand. "Holy shit," he heard Jeff exclaim. He called to Sam, who slowly made his way over. "Bring the camera and come down here." Sam felt terror grip him. He really didn't want to go down there, but he also didn't want Jeff to think he was chicken shit either. He grabbed the camera and descended into the black pit. At first, he couldn't see anything. It was black, very black. He saw the beam of Jeff's flashlight shining on a large corrugated pot. Even with the sunlight coming down the opening, it didn't seem to penetrate the darkness. Finally, it dawned upon Sam that the walls and floors were black. The air was stale and smelled strong of soot. Jeff was excitedly moving around the room to see the treasures it held. A long roll of thunder boomed in the distance. "Start taking pictures," Jeff exclaimed, annoyed that Sam was just standing there. "Make sure the flash is on." Sam began to snap photos. The flash illuminated the room briefly. After about the 3rd photo, Sam caught the glimpse of something that made him jump. A human skull. Heat pounded in his chest. He squeaked out, "Jeff, there's a skull." Jeff, busy looking here and there, didn't hear him. He snapped another photo just to be sure. Yup, definitely a skull. Louder, Sam said, "Jeff, there's a skull." "What?" "Oh yeah, a skull. There's a few of them down here. Looks like there was a fire in this room." He kicked one across the room towards Sam. Sam jumped. "What the hell, man?" Sam said as his fear was turning into anger. "Dude, this isn't right. You shouldn't be messing with bodies. We need to call the cops or something." Jeff laughed. "Call the cops? And tell them what? We found a bunch of 1,000-year-old dead bodies. Sam was really pissed now. Listen, Jeff, if you want to fuck around with this stuff, be my guest. I'm done. There's something bad about this place, and I'm leaving. Again, Jeff laughed. You're scared of a bunch of bones. Whatever, man, go. I'm not paying your ass to be a crybaby. Sam tossed Jeff his camera to the ground and climbed up the ladder, and Jeff started cussing at the broken camera. Sam didn't care, though. He started walking back to Jeff's house where his truck was parked. The wind was blowing pretty hard now. Black clouds covered the sun. Sam now saw flashes of lightning along with the thunder. When he arrived home, he remembered that my aunt and uncle had just left with his sisters on their way to Nebraska. His older brother, Zach, was also gone to work at the Pizza Hut for the evening. He was tired. He had laid down on the couch and fell asleep, trying not to think about the black room full of bones. A loud crack of thunder shook his house and jolted Sam awake. The house was dark. He fumbled his way to the light switch and flipped it on. Nothing. A flash of lightning illuminated the room. Damn storm must have knocked the power out. The wind was howling outside. He fumbled around in the closet until he found a lantern and lit it. He still felt extremely creeped out and went to his bedroom where he had a joint stashed. He figured if he smoked it, it'd help him with his nerves. His bedroom faces the driveway. He opens his window and goes to light his joint. The flash of the lightning and something darts across the driveway. His heart skips a beat. The dogs start barking. He puts down the joint and closes the window. He feels terror gnawing at his gut. What the hell was that? He goes down the stairs as precaution and locks the front sliding door. He hears heavy footsteps run across the porch. Now he goes into full panic mode. Shit! The side door. He bolts across the living room and trips over a chair. The dogs are freaking out, growling and barking. He catches a glimpse of something run by the living room window, illuminated by the flash of lightning. He gets to the door, fumbling with the lock. Whatever's outside has a hold of the knob. It starts to turn. He slams the deadbolt locked. Fuck! The basement sliding glass door. He bolts down the stairs. He makes it to the door and finding it's already been locked. Phew! Another lightning bolt. In the flash, he sees a silhouette of what he thinks is a man covered with fur. A coyote skin draped over his head. Red eyes shining from the darkness where his face should be, standing at the edge of the yard. It's very tall, looking into those red shining eyes. His breath caught in his throat. Panic wells up in him. Scrambling, he falls backwards, knocking his head on the table. Crying, he gets to his feet and bolts up the stairs to find a phone. Calling 911. His heart is hammering into his brain. He picks up the phone. Nothing. A large thump coming from the roof shakes him to despair. The thing is on the roof. Fuck! Gun comes into his mind. He bolts into his parents' bedroom where they keep a shotgun in the closet. The dogs bound after him. It begins to start pouring rain. He can still hear footsteps in the roof. He locks the door behind him, going into the closet. The dogs follow him in. He finds the shotgun. His hands are shaking crazy. He loads it. The dogs are quiet. He can't hear anything coming from the roof anymore. Where the hell is it? In the house? He sits in the closet and waits. The dogs huddle around him. What seems like an hour passes and nothing but a distant boom of thunder as the storm marches on. He begins to calm down a bit, still in shock. At this point, the storm has rolled to the north. Suddenly, he hears the door knob rattling. Bang, bang, bang! It's beating at the door. Boom! The shotgun goes off, blowing a hole in the closet ceiling. Something or someone screams. Don't shoot! He hears his brother Zach scream. Tears run down Sam's face. He drops the gun and runs to the door, unlocking it and almost knocking his brother over. Zach is pissed. What the fuck, man? Why are you shooting at me? Sam is in a daze. The story of what had happened earlier in the day and this evening spews out of him. Zach listens, not saying a word. At the end, Zach asks him, "Okay, Sam, what did you smoke?" "Nothing, I'm not high, bro." Zach laughs at him. "Okay, but Mom is going to be pissed not only because you blew a huge hole in your closet, but also all the mud you tracked all over the place. You'd better get up and clean it up." "What mud? And how did Zach get into the house?" He thinks the house was locked. He asks Zach. Zach tells him the sliding glass door was wide open. The electricity had come back on at some point while he was in the closet. True to what Zach said, there was red mud, bared footprints all around the house. It wasn't him. He showed Zach his shoes. Bare feet that had the prints were way larger than his feet. They agreed. "I bet it was Jeff," Zach concluded. "He probably came over to fuck with you because he's pissed. You quit and you busted his camera. He knew you were freaked out, so he figured he'd fuck with your head." Sam isn't sure, but it makes him feel better. Yeah, he tells himself, Jeff is an asshole. I must not have locked the door. The noise on the roof must have been the wind blowing shingles off. It began making sense. He and Zach drank a couple beers that his dad had left in the fridge. They cleaned the mud to the best of their abilities. After getting buzzed, they decide they're going to go over in the morning and confront Jeff. Zach says he needs to pay Sam an extra since they now need to rent a carpet shampooer and clean the mess that he had made. They decide to go into town with one of his friends who was throwing a party. I don't know how late they had stayed out. The party is one of those that's out in the boonies with a big bonfire. There's about 20 teens there. Sam is having a hard time enjoying the party. He keeps feeling like something's watching him. The beer isn't tasting good, and he's not really socializing with his friends. They ask him what's wrong, but he just says he's tired. The full moon is rising to the east, casting its eerie light in the sandstone bluffs and cedars. Sam gazes past the firelight and catches a glimpse of something moving just out of the reach of the firelight. It moves behind a bush. Must be someone pissing, he thinks to himself, but his gut is disagreeing. Suddenly, a strange throaty howl pierces the night. Sam jumps. He looks around, but no one else seems to have heard anything. They continue laughing and talking. Now he hears heavy footprints behind him. He turns to see a large figure of a man standing just outside of the firelight. He's paralyzed with fear. The man's face is hidden in the shadow, but Sam can feel his eyes piercing through him. He closes his eyes and starts whispering a prayer under his breath. When he has the courage to open them, the man is gone, and he's pretty much freaked out at this point and just wants to get the hell out of there. He tells Zach he's going home, and Zach decides to stay. Sam doesn't really want to go home. He also doesn't want to go back to the party. His mind is racing, and he heads east down to Old Concho Highway. Surely, he thinks to himself, he's just freaked out. Jeff came over to scare him, and that person at the party was probably just someone who was out there peeing. Yeah, it makes sense. He notices something run across the highway. Now it's like 2 a.m., so the highway is deserted. He slows down, thinking it must have been a deer. Crash! Something hits the back of his truck, jerking it forward with a slam. He slams on his brakes and looks in the rearview mirror. He catches a glimpse of shining eyes. He is in full panic mode and stomps on the gas. Sheer terror engulfs him. Too afraid to look back, he sees something out of the corner of his eye. He turns to look and sees a man running next to his truck. He looks at the speed and he's going 70. He looks again and now it's a coyote-type creature and that's looking straight at him. At first its face is shrouded in blackness. Then he said it transformed right before his eyes. The only way he could describe it was a demon, large red eyes, and a twisted smile, showing long, sharp teeth. It threw back its head and laughed. It took its long clawed hand and scratched along its truck as it sped past and disappeared into the darkness. So this is what I remember. We lived about 2 hours from Snowflake. I'm 7 years old, asleep in my bed. Around 3 in the morning, my family is awakened to someone pounding on the door. Of course, this wakes everyone up, and us kids watch as my dad opens the door to see it's my cousin Sam. He is as white as a ghost, shaking and crying. My parents, pretty startled, try to figure out what's going on. He starts babbling about demons chasing him, and my mom sends us back to bed. The next day, my dad calls a Navajo friend, and they take his to someone and see Saunders, a medicine man. After they return, Sam stays with us until his parents return from Nebraska. When he finally does go home, he never sees anything again. Years later, when I was older, and we became closer, I asked him what happened that night. He had shown up at our house, and he reluctantly told me. I later asked my parents about it, and they confirmed that it was the same story he had told me, minus one final part. So the morning that Sam showed up at our house, Zach, his older brother, went to Jeff's house to collect Sam's money. When he got there, Jeff wasn't there. The door to the house was wide open. The inside was trashed. Furniture was turned over and broken. Jeff ended up being gone for about 6 months. Everyone wondered where he had went. No one really knew any of this or anything about him. At one point, my grandma filed missing person report in the sheriff's office that informed him that Jeff was back east. When he does finally return, he is gaunt and looks like he had aged 20 years. Everyone wonders if it was drugs. Fast forward 5 to 6 years later. My grandparents invite Jeff to Thanksgiving at their home. Sam has graduated and long since moved away, but he's up for Thanksgiving. Jeff asks Sam to come to his truck because he has something to show him. Sam agrees. Jeff hands him a stack of photos. They're the pictures that had been taken while they were excavating the ruins. Sam flips through them, not really wanting to think about what happened back then. In the last few years, he convinced himself that it was just a bunch of coincidences and he had freaked himself out. Jeff unhappily tells Sam to look at the pictures closer. Sam does. At first, he doesn't notice anything, but then he notices the shadows in the pictures are really figures. Small, twisted, and evil, with the same face of a demon that had chased him. Jeff apologizes to Sam, but he says he had to make sure he wasn't crazy. He tells Sam that in the 6 months he was gone, he was hunted by this thing. It followed him all the way to Oklahoma. Finally, he sought help from a medicine man. He returned the artifacts and backfilled the ruin. Sam said he didn't know what happened to the photos, and he didn't want to know. What an incredible story. Something a little different. Normally I do encounters, just brief encounters. This was a large story and amazing detail. I found this story, read it, and a lot of you guys will remember the Stoddard story that I did a couple months ago in regards to the Skinwalker, Snowflake, Arizona. This just blew my mind. I actually, when I was narrating this, was sitting in the studio and creeped out like something was behind me. I'm probably going to burn sage now and pray a little bit. I hope you guys enjoyed this story. Absolutely true encounter. And with that, guys, have a great evening. And I'll have something awesome for you tomorrow as well. Thank you for all your support.